He went on to combine the flamboyance of Liberace with the piano style of Jerry Lee Lewis, and like his best mates Olivia Newton-John and Rod Stewart, became a multi-millionaire megastar. Today, at the age of 37, he not only owns a First Division football team, but looks back on 15 years and 26 albums, which have collectively sold 100 million copies worldwide. His concert tours have included Russia, and his football team has toured China. He married recently, and while in Christchurch, I finally got to meet the man called Elton. Elton John, welcome back to New Zealand.
Thank you very much.
And our congratulations, of course, to yourself and Renata.
Thanks.
We saw snippets of the wedding on the television. Did it all go smoothly?
It went incredibly well, considering the fact that I swanned into the hotel on a Friday night and announced I was getting married. I originally for a Monday night, and then Renata said, oh, you better give people some time, because we had some people flying in from Los Angeles and New York and England. So we got married on Tuesday, but the people that look after the wedding and are the same people that really look after the tour. So they got everything going very, very well, except that we had to have a special dispensation from the Attorney General in Australia. Everyone was fantastic. It went off very smooth. There were no hitches whatsoever.
What about the dress? Did the dress arrive a little?
It fitted me great. The dress, no, Renata went out with the dress on the Saturday. They were still making the dress. That was ready-made. The bridesmaid dresses had to be made. And they were working right up to 4:30 that day. Everyone really pulled their fingers out, and it really was fantastic.
Were you nervous at all?
You should have seen me trying to leave, and my buttonhole hadn't arrived. I was pacing up and down the floor and going, where's my buttonhole, where's my buttonhole? Because I was supposed to get to the church at 6:15, and Renata was supposed to get there at 6. But I always like to be early, so I was at the church about 20 to 6, and it was boiling hot, and I was there for about 25 minutes just pacing up and down. Yeah, I was terribly nervous, but not during the ceremony. Then afterwards, no.
So you both obviously got to get on incredibly well because of another thing is the musical interest that you both have. What does Renata actually do?
Well, Renata originally was, when I first met her, she was a tape operator on the Too Low for Zero album, which we did in Montserrat. And then I met her again when I did a Key D single, which wasn't released over here. I don't think it was released in England either, hardly. It just didn't do anything, but Renata engineered that for me, and then she became the engineer on the new album. And so I've seen her on and off for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Does this mean that if you have any problems in the studio, you've got to go home and make your own tea?
No, I've got a little studio at home, actually, so I'm going to probably start producing little efforts at home and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. She knows how to deal with me, which most people do anyway, but it's great.
You've been to New Zealand on numerous occasions now, but the first time you've ever had a Maori welcome was this time. How did that
No, that's not true. I had the Maori welcome the second time. I think I came, which was a longer one. When we went to, I think we went to some press reception outside of Auckland somewhere.
How did it go this time? How did the Maori welcome go?
It was great. It was fine. I never know what to do. I was never to laugh or what to do. I get a spear thrown around my throat. No, it was very touching.
Now, you're an extremely proficient piano player. Can you remember a time when you thought, I've got to play the piano, or like most kids, did you have to be forced into it?
I grew up really with my grandparents and my mother. My father was away in the Air Force all of the time. And I used to sit, my grandmother had a piano in the house, an upright piano, and my auntie used to play. And so she used to sit me on her knee, and I used to play Skater's Waltz instantly. I picked it up apparently very, very quickly. I played by ear. And then because I had a talent for playing, my parents wanted me to learn, which I didn't really want to. I did. I started when I was about 6 or 7 to have lessons. And I eventually won a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Music on a Saturday morning, which meant I went to school on Monday to Friday and Royal Academy on Saturday, and I had to do my homework Sunday, so I wasn't very pleased about that. But I was the sort of kid that used to do enough practice to scrape through everything. And looking back on it now, I would say it really helped me tremendously. And I say to anybody who's got a talent for it, that any musical education they can possibly get or grab, do it, even though at the time it may seem to be a bit of a nuisance. in the long run, it'll really benefit you.
What about, I presume, I don't play the piano, so I presume you would be given set pieces to learn to play. What about when you broke away from those a little bit and started tinkering around by yourself? That's not in the lesson.
Well, no, that's it. I used to play on my own before that, and so learning set pieces was more of a sort of discipline thing, really. But it's a sight reading thing, to learn to read to music. I can't sight read now, you see, because I've lost my practice. It's like if you don't play tennis for a long time, you lose your sense of rhythm. And it's the same with sight reading. If you don't do it for a long time, but I've still got the basic sense to be able to pick up chords and things by looking at things. It's just a matter that I just played by ear, and instead of playing in C all the time, now I can play in all different keys.
Who were your idols at the time?
Winifred Atwell, who I was lucky enough to meet in Australia, bless her. And then the sorts of pianists like Jerry Lee Lewis. Little Richard was my real idol, because he's the sort of piano player that I am. He's a real thumper. And I've got this incredibly small hands, you see, so I really shouldn't be able to play the piano. I like chipolata sausages, really. And then I grew to like Leon Russell and people like that. A couple of people that probably kids won't even heard of in a band called Little Feat. There's an amazing piano player called Billy Payne. So there's been loads of keyboard players.
What a fine run. He's gone all the way, Rostrom. And finishes in style. 13 minutes gone. Watford 1, Tottenham 0. So, Spurs.
And obviously Watford takes up a huge amount of your spare time, I presume. How did you get involved with them?
I did an interview for the New Music Express in England with a girl called Julie Webb, who lived in Watford at the time, and she said, "You're a Watford fan?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Why, they're in terrible trouble financially. Why don't you approach them and do a benefit concert?" I thought, "Oh, that's a good idea." This is the time when I was wearing 8-inch high-heeled shoes and had pink hair. And I approached the chairman of the club, and they were very sweet to me, very, very nice. They probably, as I walked out the door, in guffaws of laughter as I left the building. But we did the concert, and we raised £20,000, and they asked me to become a vice president of the club, and then eventually I became a director. And the thing I loved about it more than anything else was not just because of the fact that it was involved with something that I'd been involved with as a kid, just being a supporter, that everybody involved, from director onwards, really treated me really as if I was just part of the club. It wasn't just being a pop star and everything like that.
So there was no feeling
family.
Oh, he'll soon lose interest, right?
No, there wasn't it. That was the thing I was surprised, because I wouldn't have minded, because I kind of half suspected that might happen. It's only in human nature. When I became the chairman in 1976, which coincided with me coming off the road and spending a couple of years just doing some things and having spare time to myself, I was really grateful, because instead of just sitting behind my big gates at Windsor and doing nothing, I had something to be really involved with, and literally become very, very involved, and I had to do things I never had to do before, like interview people and do contracts, go to bank meetings and things like that. And the people that are involved in the club are the same sort of people I've got around me now, the people I enjoy working with. It's like a family atmosphere. And we said that if we ever lost that, if we went from the 4th division to the 1st division, and it changed the atmosphere of the club, that we'd leave. And so far it's remained that way. And that's basically the reason that I stayed there. The success of the club has been fantastic, but we've worked at that. But it's actually the feeling within the club with all the people. It's great.
It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside. I'm not one of those who can easily hide. I don't have much money, but boy, if I did, I'd buy a big house where we both could live. Anyway, the thing is, what I really mean, I wouldn't be chairman of no other team.
Do you tour very much with the team?
Not really, because, well, that was very, very important, really. The Chinese thing was sort of a protocol thing. And also, you don't often get the chance to go to China. I'd been to Russia, so I wanted to go to China with the team. And we were invited, so as chairman of the club, I felt that I had to spare the time to go. Luckily, I had the time too. And it was a tremendous time, really interesting.
You looked like you were enjoying it because you could wander down the streets and buy things without people rushing around.
No, I did
with
still
pens
buy
and
things,
paper.
yeah. No, I could, yes. For 5 or 6 days I loved it. Then I got a bit fed up and I met a bunch of American tourists and they went, there's Elton John. I thought, God, thank God for that. So it was good in one sense. But after 6 or 7 days I got paranoid that I would never be recognised again. So the old ego was still working.
Little bit more serious now because we're going to play Empty Garden in a second. You performed with John Lennon 10 years ago at Madison Square Garden. Were you very close friends? Because that was his last performance, wasn't it? His last live.
It was his first performance and last performance for quite some time. I grew to know John in a period of about 2 years. First met him on a recording session when he was doing the rock and roll album in Los Angeles with Phil Spector producing. And I went to the studio and Phil Spector had such an aura about him. There wasn't a particularly enjoyable meeting, not because of John, but because of the atmosphere in the studio. And then I got to know him in Los Angeles, and it was a particularly harrowing point in his life, and yet he was always very, very nice and very sweet, and very kind. So how thoughtful he was. So he would come in a room and talk to anybody as if he'd known them all his life. As well as the fact I'd be in the room, he wouldn't just take any notice of me, he'd just take notice of everybody. And it was a time where I'd still hide behind my dark glasses. Times haven't changed. And I was so impressed with the fact that he could be so kind to everybody, and not just me. He's an incredibly thoughtful person. And not only would he came out to the airport to see me off, he could take the band out. And amazing and great and incredible. Had a great impact on me.
After John's death, what was the feeling of stars in the public eye?
I think everyone was a little scared, to be quite honest, because America is a sort of frightening country like that. I mean, there are lots of lunatics walking around with guns. Because in our country and in your country, you don't have that problem. You know, we don't even have police with guns in England. But I think people were a little worried. But I don't think you can start walking around with hulking great bodyguards. In fact, my personal assistant, Bob Halley, everyone thinks because of his demeanour and the way he looks that he's my bodyguard. And in fact, he's not. He's my personal assistant. So I've got 2 people for the price of 1 there. But I don't like bodyguards with guns, and I don't like guns in particular. But I must admit, I think people, especially Paul McCartney and people like that, must have been a little aware that some nutcase might be trying to wipe them all out. Especially if you've got a family, I think it's not a particularly pleasant thought.
Let's talk a little bit about the songwriting. It didn't come easy. It always fascinates me. This machinery of songwriting, one after the other.
It's kind of like, I call it, well, initially Bernie and I, of course, wrote by lyrics first, and then the music came. And then when the Single Man album came out, which was an album I did with Gary Osborne, which actually became unintentionally an album, I went into the studio to do a single of Ego, a song called Ego, and I hadn't written for so long that I wrote all these melodies first, which I'd never done before, so it was a complete opposite way of working. I don't sit down and write every day. I usually write once every year when the album's due. For example, I've just come back from Montserrat again, and we've just done a new album to be released in about May. And I hadn't got any material before I arrived in Montserrat, and I wrote 12 songs there. There's always the danger that you might not be able to write, so that's quite like that. In fact, for the first half an hour there when I was trying to write, I couldn't write anything and I was panicking, because usually if I do write, I write very, very quickly. But eventually it all came out. I never think about it. The way we write is very strange. The way I write is very strange. But I don't write on the road. I don't take a piano around with me. I mean, God, it would be an awkward thing to do anyway. But with Bernie and I, it's something that is it just works. There's a magic there. And if I write with Gary and everything like that, it gives me a chance to write the melodies first. But I don't write very often. I don't like writing very often, really.
There's a question for me, because I've always wondered this. Candle in the Wind. Did you ever really want to meet Marilyn Monroe? Would you have loved to have met her?
I didn't, you see, but I wasn't a Marilyn Monroe, I knew who she was, but I knew Bernie was the one that had the fascination with Marilyn. And then, of course, since that song came out, and since I became more aware of Marilyn Monroe, I became a Marilyn Monroe fan too, by seeing all her films and seeing how brilliant she was. But actually, at that point, I wasn't particularly a Marilyn Monroe fan. I knew who she was, but Bernie was the one. And yes, having seen the films now, yes, I'd love to have met Noel Coward and people like that. But yes, I would. But she's extraordinary. She stole every film she was in.
Do you have a particular favourite song, one that you've suddenly found it on a piece of paper in front of you and thought, oh, that's the one?
There are certain songs that you write particularly quickly, and that you always remember writing. I remember your song was very, very quick, and that will always be kind of, that was the first good song I ever wrote, or we ever wrote, sorry. I remember we used to record in a place called Caribou, which is right up in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and I was writing, we all had little cabins, the band stand. I used to share with Nigel Olsen. I used to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he used to go to bed about 5, so I wasn't too popular. And I started writing Don't Let the Sun Go Down to Me. And it's one of those things you just start all the way through, and you more to start to finish. And he came down in his dressing gown the staircase, bleary-eyed, and said, "Number 1," and then went straight up to bed. Luckily he was right. And there's one on the new album that, called Sad Songs Say So Much. It's probably going to be the new single, which is the fastest song I've ever written. I just went literally straight the way through. Not a word was changed. I went straight to the first verse, chorus, and didn't change a thing. And luckily the tape operator put it down on tape. But that was the fastest I've ever written.
So how long did it take from beginning to end?
About 2.5 minutes, I think.
Me. Something completely different now. Could you, this $100,000 ear stud, is that the right price?
This one?
Yeah.
125 it was supposed to be, but my manager got a good price on it. Got a good price, yes.
Do you collect jewellery?
Yes, I like old jewellery especially. I like old things, really. That's why I'm touring for Kevin Ritchie. Yeah, I collect old workmanship. I love old workmanship. It's, it's coming to New Zealand and seeing all these old cars.
Right.
Perfectly preserved. Wonderful. Because things today, you lose character just going out of things. Things are becoming very uniform. Yes, I do. I like old Cartier jewellery and Fabergé stuff. Yeah.
So what's the story behind the ones that you're wearing at the
Well,
moment?
no, I went to South Africa this year, which will probably stir up a lot of storm, a big storm here. I went to see Rod Stewart playing in a place called Sun City, and as long as people can go and buy tickets, and it's it's not segregated, then I said, right, I'm going to go, because music and sport, I think, should be left alone as far as politics are concerned, because they bring people together more than anything else. They've made great strides in South Africa with sport. It's not exactly the best yet, but they're trying. And I went, and I had a great time over there. In fact, who's the man who plays guitar? In fact, George Benson had just been. He did a concert to 100,000 people out there. And it was great, it was a great atmosphere to be able to play to people there. Yeah. As I say, it's not for me I'm not able to change a country's politics. All I'm able to do is go over that and try and bring people closer together through music. Yeah. I've been to Russia. I go to America, they have the Ku Klux Klan over there, but those don't stop me from playing there. Yeah. And so through music and through sport, I think people are drawn closer together, and I'm not egotistical enough to think any way that I can change politics by not going. Yeah. I can help by going, I think.
So did you pick up some of the jewellery that you got on now in South Africa, did you?
Yes. Yeah, this and this ring here. And
what about the glasses? Tell me about the glasses.
No, well, you see, Cartier, the Cartier is a company that is one of the world's famous jewelers, and they launched a brand of sunglasses, and they flew me to Tunisia when they launched the sunglasses and gave me the first pair that they made. And they don't usually make them with diamonds and stuff on them, but they gave them to me for nothing. So they said, come to Tunisia for the evening, we'll give you a pair of diamond sunglasses. And I thought, well, I will. And they're especially engraved.
Good,
but I buy a lot of stuff from Cartier, a lot of old stuff. Because as I say, you won't see the workmanship again. It's like cars. I bought a tram from Melbourne in Australia because I think it's beautiful. It's a 1930s tram. It's a work of art. So it cost me more to transport it from Melbourne to London than it did to buy the tram. But I rang Paddy Mustin, my publicist in Los Angeles, in Australia, and said, I want a tram. And she said, fine. And luckily she managed to get me one because they were all going to San Francisco, because they were using them in San Francisco. I think that's a work of art, this tram, and I've got it now in my garden. A, it reminds me of Australia, and B, I think character. It's character, dear boy. Catherine Hepburn once said to me, as she dived into my swimming pool, name drop, so I'm so afraid of frogs. And Catherine Hepburn loves to swim, and there was a dead frog in my pool, and she dived down, got the frog, and threw it out, and I said, how did you do that? She went, character, dear boy, character. And that's what I mean by these things. They've got character, and unfortunately, character's dying out in the world nowadays.
So, character and a certain amount of extravagance, I think.
Of course.
What's the most extravagant thing you've ever bought?
The most extravagant thing? Well, I don't really know. I try not to be extravagant. I try not to buy things that I'll waste money on. But I must admit, though, in about 10 years ago, when I had a passion for cars, I bought a new Mercedes, and I'm not very proud of this story, but I bought it, and it was one of these things where you could take the hard top off, and the soft top came up. And first morning I had it, I took the sunroof off, and my father was bringing the soft top up, and it stuck halfway, and an hour later I had a Ferrari.
The Elton John image has changed quite a lot over the years. Have you made a conscious effort to tone down how outrageous it all is?
I don't think so. I just think as one gets older, your tastes change. I never really was conscious of any image that I had when I was doing it. Just that when I was a teenager, I was never really given the freedom to wear or do what I wanted. So when it came to being successful in my 20s, I suddenly went, wow. When I look back on the stuff I've worn, which I've still got at home, I go, my God, how awful.
Did you pick it all yourself?
Yeah. I never designed things for stage things. I always got designers and let them get on with it, because I'm like that anyway. If you get somebody creative to do something for you, like a lighting director or a stage set designer, then you let them get on with it. You don't tell them what to do, otherwise you might as well do it yourself. And that's half the fun of letting creative people do things for you. But I must say, half the things that were done for me, the glasses that were made by the Optique Boutique in Los Angeles when I started wearing those funny glasses and stuff, that was their idea, it wasn't mine, and I just carried it on. I had a great time doing it. I've got some costumes at home. There's one that is black, and it's got spikes with all coloured different balls, and it's got stuff with elastic and with balls on the end of it, and when I used to come on stage, it was black, and in day-glow light, there's all these balls just going everywhere. But I don't really have a look at it now. I don't,
I imagine they'd be incredibly heavy to wear.
Even when I went to the football clubs, I said I used to wear these awful shoes. I started more, I think I was responsible for that awful high-heeled 8-inch sort of platform boot type thing.
Heavy to play a piano or walk around?
I never had an accident in them. I used to run for buses and taxis, leap off pianos. No, I never had an accident, funnily enough. I look at them now, I think, my God, how do you jump off the piano and those sort of things? But I think as you get older, your tastes change. People consider me pretty outrageous in what I do, but having toned down with a football club, one has to, I always wear a suit and tie and everything like that, which I enjoy anyway. But over the years, I think as you get older, I think your tastes change and become a little more mellow. When I see the punks run, I go, my God, I wish I had the courage to do that.
Goodbye, Norma Jean. Though I never knew you would, all you had the grace to hold yourself while those around you crawled. They crawled out of the woodwork and they whispered into your brain. They said you on the treadmill and they made you change your name. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never knowing who to cling to when the rain set in. And I would have liked to know you, but I was just a kid. Your candle burned out long before your legend ever did. Goodbye, Norma Jean. Just outside of Lennon Road. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the
Your style is changing a little bit now. You're looking more towards your older material. Why is that? Why are you concentrating on older material now?
Well, on the tour? Well, because I've been playing that particular set, the one we came here last with, Funeral for a Friend, beginning with Funeral for a Friend, for so long, and I'm lucky enough to have enough material to be able to take 6 or 7 songs out that were hits and put 6 or 7 songs back. And if you're a musician and you go on stage and you really, no matter how much the crowd want to hear it, let's take Yellow Brick Road, for example. I played that solo now. I don't really get any pleasure out of playing it. So if I'm playing it, it's not, I don't consider it that I'm 100% happy playing it. So I don't think I'm giving full value, honesty to the public. So we've changed the set around this time to include a lot of Too Low for Zero, and songs that we really didn't do on the last time we were here. Because otherwise we'd be just going through the same old stuff time after time after time. We're putting things back like Candle in the Wind, and Daniel, and Hercules, and things like that, which we haven't done for a long time. And that's great, Philadelphia Freedom. And during rehearsals it's worked very well because they sound fresh. But otherwise we'd just be playing the same old stuff. And as much as I love Funeral for a Friend and Love Lies Bleeding, if I heard that one more time at the start of our show, I'd go,
Do you still enjoy touring?
Yes, I do. I wouldn't do it if I didn't. It really is. I don't have to tour financially. I'm lucky enough to have now. With the Too Low for Zero album, it was very strange because it meant the coming back together of the 4-piece band, a relationship with the producer like I used to have with Gus Oden with Chris Thomas, which has grown. And I've got the same people around me now as I did 15 years ago. We've been through ups and downs and everything, and the pleasure really of it all is being able to share it with these people, and after all that time, still be with them, and I think we're playing better. And it feels fantastic just to be able to get a second chance at having that enthusiasm. And so that, more than anything else, it means a lot to me.
Is there anywhere left in the world that you want to go to now?
I'd like to go to Egypt. I'm not talking of playing now. I'd like to go and see certain things. I'd like to see the pyramids before maybe it's too late. I've been to India. There's not many places. I've been pretty lucky. I wouldn't mind going up the Amazon for about 2 or 3 weeks. I'm sure there are a lot of people that wouldn't mind me seeing going up the Amazon for 2 or 3 weeks either, especially Kevin Ritchie.
You'll be in trouble. We touched a little bit earlier on, quite a bit earlier on your new album, Reckless. Tell us a bit about that.
On that album, I've written the best up-tempo songs I've ever written, because I always found it difficult to write up-tempo songs, because on a piano, melodically, and the way it's structured, it's very hard to write a simple song. One's tempted to write much more melodic and more complicated structure of a song. And to be a guitarist, I always wanted to be a guitarist, but never had the patience or had the fingers to do it. But that's where you write 3 or 4 chord songs that become rock and roll, really good rock and roll songs. So since I've discovered the synthesizer, about 15 years after everybody else, there are sounds on the synthesizer that sound like a guitar. So consequently, there are a few songs on the album, like there's one called Restless, one called Slow Down Geordie, one called Little Refrigerator. And they're the best recorded and the best rock and roll songs I've ever written. I've never really been entirely happy with the up-tempo songs that I've written. Started on Too Low for Zero, when I started writing on the synthesizer, with things like Standing. But this one, I think, is a better album, and we had to top Too Low for Zero, and I think we have done. And that, for me, is the most difficult part, was to write up-tempo songs. So I can write ballads, so I'm coming out blue in your face, I'm a miserable sod. But, no, it's very easy on a keyboard to write melodic songs. It really is. But to write 4-chord up-tempo songs, it's much easier on a guitar, and now I think with the synthesizer, I've mastered that. And I think the whole album, Restless is a very up-tempo track. It's like a Stones type track. There's a beautiful ballad on the album called Breaking Hearts Ain't What It Used to Be, and Sad Songs Say So Much. We just tried to improve, make every track as good as it could be. For example, on Too Low, it's the only other album, apart from Captain Fantastic, where I wouldn't change anything. And this album is getting that way. We've still got to finish it off, but I'm very, very pleased with it.
So you've almost reached perfection.
No, you never reach perfection. Once you've done it, you can never reach perfection. But you can strive for it every time. The pursuit of excellence is what one should go for every time.
It has been a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Now, look, before you go, I'm going to give you the first one ever to be presented a Shazam sweatshirt.
Ah,
There you are.
Thank you.
Now look, if you're ever painting around the house,
yes.
or you've got to have the dog in the back of the car or something like that, you want something to put the hairs on, there's a Shazam sweatshirt. Been a
Thanks
pleasure
very
talking
much.
to you. Thank you very much, and best of luck with the album.
Thanks.